Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Lab podcast. This podcast's purpose is an extension of my purpose, which is to help you have the confidence in your life to do all the things that you want to. There's pipe dreams that you have that you feel like there's maybe a 1% chance of those happening. I want to help make those a reality. Now, my name is Glen, and I'm a personal trainer by trade, but I just want to see people have their full expression of themselves in the world, which is what we're talking about in this podcast. And today's topic, very near and dear to me, it is faster muscles equal healthier joints, the role of speed in the health of your joints. Really quick story here. I have a client and she had a knee replacement about 7 months ago at the time of this recording. And her goal was to be able to go on a hike with her family 6 months after her knee replacement. Now, that can be a tall order for most people, but this one was quite driven, quite dedicated. And we did some work together and we created a plan. And we got to a point where her knee was actually functioning pretty well. And she was okay going up and down stairs. And surprisingly, her biggest issue was actually getting downstairs. She's like, I have a hard time going downstairs more than one at a time. And now there's going to be an issue if I want to go for a hike with my family. I said, that's a great point. Let's take a look under the hood. Let's examine your body, your meat vehicle, and see what we can find. And interestingly enough, what we discovered was she actually had a deficit in her ability to contract some of her ankle muscles, specifically the velocity or the speed that she needed to be able to pull her ankle up towards her shin was slower on that side that she had her knee replacement on. And because every time her foot hit the ground, she could actually access that dorsiflexion position soon enough. What ended up happening is she would fall off balance and her body couldn't actually control her leg. And so she felt like she was going to fall over, understandably so. So what we did is we developed a plan to help increase the strength and the speed at which those muscles can contract in her right ankle. And once those started getting better, going downstairs was a little bit easier for her. And we started having her get off a platform at 2 inches at a time, and then 4 inches. And then 6 inches. And then she tells me one day she's going to go see Ricky Gervais. I say, have a nice time. The next day she comes in for a session. She said, Glenn, you'll never believe what happened. I said, what? She said, I walked down all the stairs, one leg after another, before and after the show yesterday. And she was so excited and so full of energy because she had the confidence to walk up and down flights of stairs, and not just like 7 or 8 at a time, but 30 stairs to get up and down the transit, which is absolutely amazing. And it was all because she needed to get improved control and velocity and speed of her ankle joint working. It's pretty amazing stuff. And so today's podcast is all about the role of speed in the health of your joints. Here is why speed is so important, more than anything else. Everything being equal, if you have all the necessary strength to do a task and the endurance to do it, but you can't move your joints fast enough, it means you are going to have a hard time coordinating the movement. And when your body has a hard time coordinating the movement, what it does is it tends to leave out that joint that is the lowest common denominator, the weak link of the chain, and it throws that work onto other joints. Very similar if you think about any of your favorite team sports. If you're a hockey fan or a soccer fan, let's use hockey for an example, 5 players on a team. Well, one player can't really do its job and its work. What's going to happen? The other 4 players have to take over for that one player that's not doing their job. The entire team suffers. Very, very similar with your body. In that you can have everything feeling really strong and have lots of endurance, but if those muscles can't react quick enough for what you're asking it to do, whether it's to go for a full-on sprint or just go for an easy walk, that's going to put you at risk. And it could lead to some unwanted sensations in the body or loss of coordination, balance, so on and so forth. So this is really the crux and the importance of being able to have muscles and joints that react quickly and have lots of speed when you're moving. Now, if you are just a little bit nerdy, you want some of the finer details, this part is for you. And if you're not nerdy, I encourage you to listen around because it's kind of cool how this works in your body. When we think about speed, the other way to think about it, and if we're thinking about it on a technical end of things, we're looking for the term velocity. Do you have the velocity contract your muscle at the speed that you need to? So often the issue isn't necessarily with the muscle, it's with the nerves and their ability to fire and contract fast enough in conjunction with the muscle. because your brain has to come up with a blueprint, has to send that blueprint down through your nervous system, and your nervous system then has to contract your musculature, and then the muscles have to move. And so if you can't get the velocity and the communication between your brain and your muscles at the speed that you need to, you're going to have some issues. Now, the velocity is pretty important because if your brain can't execute that blueprint in the time that it needs to, you're going to be in hot water. And so when we think about velocity and speed of our joints moving, another way to think about this is what we call in the industry, technically, rate of force development. It's a bit wordy. It's a bit of a mouthful. You know how us nerdy technical types are. We have to have a word for everything that's different from the lay public. It's like lawyer speak, right? But rate of force development is just another way of saying being able to get those electrical brain impulses down to your muscles that contract at the speed that you want them to. And so you can do that in any number of different ways. Sometimes it's more than enough just to think about doing an exercise through a full range of motion. That can be enough to start triggering this connection between the brain and the muscles so that you can have more speed. Other times, you might actually have to move faster in order to work on coordinating your ankle, your knee, and your hip together. We're not necessarily trying to get into what do you need to do right now, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of all these different things that you could do. And so that kind of covers why rate of force development and speed is important for healthy joints. So your body can hold itself the way it needs to, move the way it needs to, trust every piece so that your muscles do the work instead of perhaps your bones taking some of the stress and then arthritis happening, or perhaps your ligaments taking some of the stress and spraining a ligament, or one side of the body working overtime for the other because you can't contract it fast enough. So the side that's working overtime is getting tight. This is kind of some of the downstream effects of not being able to move the joints as fast as we want to. So with that in mind, what are some other different ways that this speed or rate of force development piece might come to play for healthy joints? Well, I'm going to put it to you that anytime we move a joint, there's almost 4 different steps. I'm going to do some visual stuff on camera here. This is a video podcast. You can rewatch it later or follow along because I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. If you think about me here, right? Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. Flexing my elbow joint in this fully closed up position, the joint angle is not really moving. This is what's called an isometric contraction. There's some tension in the muscle, but we're not going anywhere. And now when I start extending my arm this way, the muscles on the top side are lengthening, which is called an eccentric contraction, and the muscles underneath are shortening. That's called concentric. And now there's a little pause in this position as my arm is fully extended. And then as I start to close up my bicep again to come back to the starting position, the muscles on the top, my elbow flexors and my biceps, along with other musculature, they close up, they create movement concentrically. So I come to that starting position, and the stuff on the back side, it lengthens up. Now, the point I'm trying to make here, without remembering all that different stuff, is that we start in a standstill position, we move our joint through the end range, there's another pause, and then we move back to the way we started. If you think about it from a squat perspective, you might start standing up. That's phase 1. You lower yourself all the way down. That's phase 2. You hold in the bottom for a second. That's phase 3. And then you stand all the way back up. That's phase 4. And when you think about it, every movement that we go through in our body, we go through those 4 phases. Same thing with walking. All of our muscles have to go through this cyclical activity of these 4 different phases. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because even though these 4 different phases are distinct in terms of how the muscles are contracting, you could have an issue in terms of the speed and the velocity and the control in any one of those different positions. So to give you an example, I work with a client just today where she has some heel pain and some residual knee discomfort. And I know from doing assessments with her that parts of her knee move really, really well in one position. She does a really, really good job extending her knee and holding it. Where she has an issue and she loses control and starts getting discomfort is when she's lowering her knee or bending it. Thinking about like doing a knee curl or kicking your butt. That's a harder position and thing for her to do. And so we could work really, really fast through all different ranges of that knee extension, but the one she really needs the most is the one where she's curling her knee more than anything else. And so it could be for someone, for example, with lower back issues, that when they lower themselves down, they're okay. But it's that transition from getting to the bottom and then having the ability to contract the muscles and extend back up, they have an issue. When you think about it, most people don't throw out their back when they're standing up. Most people throw out their back when they bend down, and when they try to come back up, it goes quick, 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 and then something goes on them. When you think about it, watch any sitcom or any cartoon where someone hurts their back, that's always what happens. They bend over, they're fine. Get to the bottom, they're okay. Come back up, issues. And so oftentimes we have to be a little bit more specific with how we're training this velocity and speed component. Because it's not always about trying to get everything faster all the time. It's about getting the one piece that you need the most better. Because that's going to raise the entire system up. If we go back to that hockey player analogy, you've got 5 players skating, and one guy is just getting tired and can't skate as much. The other 4 guys got to take over. That's when they get upset and ticked off. Well, if we just worked on the endurance of that one guy or gal or person that can't keep up, then everyone else on the team is happy. That was the lowest common denominator. So for you, if we're talking about healthy joints, we're trying to figure the lowest common denominator in terms of the velocity and the speed of the contractions to help you move and feel your best. And so at this point in time, I want to move into and talk to you just a little bit about what are some different considerations for training speed in your body. So let's say we know you've got enough strength, you've got enough endurance, and we really have to work on the velocity, the speed, this rate of force development component we're talking about here. There are a couple different ways that you can think about it. The first thing I encourage you to think about is what is the current health of all the tissues in the area you want to train. So if we think about knee health, for example, one of the things I'm thinking about is there any arthritis in the knee? Is there a torn meniscus in the knee? Are there any compromised ligaments? Do they have a joint replacement? What is the general health of this knee? Because if they have an extremely arthritic knee, it could be that moving really, really fast in one direction is going to cause them a lot of pain, discomfort, and we don't want to do that. So we have to find a way to perhaps just go faster in the other direction, knowing there's going to be a little bit of carryover there. So the first considerations we have is, what is the current capabilities and tissue health of that joint? And if you can do something a little quicker at that joint, then you're going to be okay, as long as there's very little or no pain and discomfort. If it starts getting painful, probably shouldn't be doing it right now. It might be too soon for that. Maybe you got to build up some strength first, or work on another area before you start going fast at this joint. And often when I work with people, I tell them, let's just try to go as fast as you feel comfortable. Because the difference between going just super slow and just going a little bit faster can already be more than enough stimulus or challenge for some people to start increasing the velocity and rate of force development at that joint. It might not take that much. And so we got to be thinking about the current status of the joint, its tissue health, and the current capabilities in that moment. From there, if we know and have identified the areas that we can move in quickly and the tissue health, we're going to start looking at a whole bunch of different ways that we can train some speed and velocity. So let's stay with the knee here, because I think it's a pretty easy example for most people to think about. I have a client where we can't really do too much fast knee stuff with him right now. He's got a little bit of something going on in his left knee, and I don't feel comfortable making him go fast at his knee. However, one of the things that he does feel comfortable doing is ankle hops, where he's trying to keep his entire lower body rigid and just move from his ankle every time he goes for a jump. And it's not the highest jump, it's not the fastest jump, but what it does is it allows him to train quick movement and force going up his ankle. And even though there's very little movement at the knee, those muscles at the knee, because he is jumping up and down, are still having to contract and relax quicker, even though there's very little movement going on. And what that means is that he's still actually training rate of force development at that knee, but it just doesn't look like it would traditionally for most people. And that's a great place for him to start right now. Because if he can get the ankle moving quicker, and we know the knee's getting a little bit of work from that, then we can slowly bring in just a little bit of knee bend, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and progress him to more fuller jumps with his knee where he's going through a greater range of motion. So you can do jumps and you can do explosive movements like you might see like athletes do if you're watching their training videos. But you have to make sure this don't feel bad. Something else that you can try, if maybe jumping isn't for you, is be on machines, but just try to go a little bit faster. Not so fast that you lose control, not so fast that the weights all of a sudden get light and weightless, but just try to go a little bit faster when you're pushing that weight away from your body, when you've got to work through the resistance. Even trying to go a little bit faster can be very, very helpful. Now, talking about machines in even more depth, there's a subset of machines that aren't at a lot of different gyms, unfortunately. However, if your gym does have one, it's pretty amazing. And I always butcher the name. It's Keiser, it's Kaiser. Keiser. I'm pretty sure it's Keiser because I'm pretty sure a Kaiser is like a German general or a chief. Could be wrong. But Keiser brand of equipment is pneumatic and air powered, which means that as you push on it, the canisters compress with air and they actually provide with more resistance. And that more resistance actually slows you down a little bit. Ultimately, what that means is that as you push into it and you go through a range of motion, if you're going faster, it's going to give you more challenge. That more challenge actually slows you down. So it makes it a really safe way to train speed. So you can actually do things like leg press, knee extensions, leg curls to train a little bit of the speed with these air-powered machines. And it's something I use with a lot of my different clients when we first get into some of this velocity, rate of force development, speed training to get the joints more accustomed to doing that because it's safer for them. And it always means they're going to have to be working underneath control. So that's one way we can use machines. Now, something I don't recommend for everybody, but it's also an opportunity, is using bands. Bands function very similar to these air-powered pneumatic machines, which is bands provide you with accommodating resistance. If you ever pulled a band, you would know that as you pull on a band, it gets more and more challenging and harder the farther the band gets pulled apart because it adds more challenge, it adds more resistance. And if you get to a part where you pull the band too much, you will end up snapping. Well, obviously we don't want that. But this makes bands a great tool to train some things a little quicker because, for example, if you're doing rows, you can be going a little bit quicker and pulling them, knowing that you're never really going to be without feeling resistance because that band's going to be giving you more challenge and less challenge as you go through the full range of motion. I wouldn't necessarily do that with anything that's going to be like overhead or too much pressing because unlike what most people think, your shoulder joint isn't really a true ball and socket where the ball is in a socket and it's in there tight. Your shoulder joints are actually more like a ball on a seal's nose. And you really rely on the ligaments and the musculature to keep it together, of which there's not a whole bunch, bulky ton of muscle to do that. Unlike your hip joint, which is a very deep capsule, lots of muscle around it. You know, very seldomly do you see people dislocate hips, but you see people dislocate shoulders far more frequently. And so bands are another way that you can train some of this speed stuff. Something else you can do if you're at home and your muscles feel very, very sensitive and all this other stuff seems like a lot, is you can just focus on squeezing your muscles, alternating between squeezing hard and relaxing, squeezing hard and relaxing. It'd be like if I had my arm up in this bicep position, I could squeeze hard, relax, squeeze hard, relax, squeeze hard, relax, squeeze hard, relax, squeeze hard, relax. And even though I'm not moving through a range of motion with that at all, I'm intermittently trying to go fast with a squeeze, then relax. And it does train that neural pathway because I'm asking muscle to do quick work and then relax, quick work and then relax. Now, some of these tools between the jumping and plyometrics, the fast full body stuff, and the machines and the isometrics and the bands, between all these different things, some of them are inherently more risky. Jumping with your body weight is going to be inherently more risky than standing and just trying to flex muscles and relax them. But the most important thing here, more than anything else, is that you find the one that feels good for you. Exercise, especially if we're looking at joints a little bit more sensitive, the way we really ought to frame this, the overwhelming amount of time, is we start with what we can do, and that will then give us the strength and the capabilities, the confidence to do what we can't. Which means that for people like my client CH, at the very beginning, after her knee replacement, she couldn't do a lot. We started with what she could do. And as she healed, we moved on to more stuff that she couldn't do right after her surgery, but then was way more viable and even good for her a month later, 2 months later, so on and so forth. And so just to kind of bring this all back to center. When we think about the role of fast muscles in the health of our joints, fast muscles allow us to actually use our joints in a safe way because the muscles can contract quick enough and do their job such that they prevent us from going in positions that are going to cause arthritis, tear ligaments, pull muscles, and otherwise create damage in and around our tissues of our body. And if we're asking our body to do something at speeds it isn't comfortable doing it, we might put ourselves in positions where this damage can happen. And if we want to increase the health of our joints and we know that the velocity and the speed is what we need to do, there are a whole bunch of different ways that we can do that. And the most important thing to do is to choose ones that feel comfortable right now, cause us no pain, if not very minimal discomfort, and train them and slowly progress to things that we can't down the line. More than anything, if you don't exercise right now, you've got some discomfort. And what you're hearing is Glen is saying to go do fast stuff. Please do the opposite of that. If you're not already exercising, even just doing little bits of movement with a little bit of resistance, which is just a little bit tiring, is going to go a very long way to helping with your strength, your endurance, and the speed of your contractions. Please start there. However, if you've been working out for a little bit and some things continue not to feel good and you think this speed thing might be a factor, you've got some ammunition now to move forward with that. Now, a lot of this stuff isn't going to be overnight. For some people, it might be. Some people are just wired differently, and that's okay. Take your time with it. Be healthy. Be safe. And let me know how it goes. Feel free to follow me at Glen Owen Fitness Pro on Instagram. Take a look at my YouTube page. I am Glen Owen. We got the video podcast and some other videos there. And we've also got a poll. Got a poll section down here on Spotify if you're listening. Fill out that poll. Or, just email me, glen@glenowen.ca, and give me some feedback. I'd love to know what kind of episodes we can produce. All right? So welcome to the Growth Lab. Welcome. This has been another episode of the Growth Lab. My name's Glen, Fitness Pro. I just want you to have the confidence to do everything in life that you want to and just fulfill on all the opportunities that life presents itself. So continue to join me on the journey. Love having you here. Cheers, everybody.